Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Cassie Elle Talks. In today's episode, we're taking a look at a game that is currently on Kickstarter that plays for 2 to 3 players, lasts about 30 to 40 minutes, called Endangered Orphans of Condyle Cove. The story of Endangered Orphans of Condyle Cove is you and all of your opponents are orphans, and you're trying to be the last orphan to survive. If you run out of options, the boogeyman will take you. And if you commit an act of desperation, the boogeyman might also take you. Players are trying to be the last orphan standing before the boogeyman takes them. The game is really dark, and it's actually a lot of fun, so I'm very excited to share it with you. Let's take a look at Endangered Orphans of Condyle Cove. All right, everyone, welcome to Endangered Orphans of Condyle Cove. I have the game kind of set up for 2 players. At the beginning of the game, you have a deck of cards here called option cards. Option cards are what help get your orphan around the board and give you more options in the game. The deck of option cards is split up among all players, so right now the deck is split in half. When a player runs out of option cards, they lose the game. The game also comes with a card here called Kitty Corner, and these cards called Cove cards. At the beginning of the game, you take Cove cards and you spread them around Kitty Corner, and this is what makes up your field that you get to move your orphan around through. Depending on what card your orphan is sitting on during your turn will determine what kind of special actions take place. And at the beginning of the game, we have 4 Cove cards placed around Kitty Corner. We also have down here 6 cards which make up the small deck called Acts of Desperation cards. If at any point during their game, your orphan is sitting in Kitty Corner, at the beginning of your turn, you'll have to flip over one of these Acts of Desperation cards. Usually they give you more options and let you do other kinds of cool things throughout the game, but one card is the boogeyman. If your orphan is on the Kitty Corner and flips the Acts of Desperation card that has the boogeyman, your orphan gets taken by the boogeyman and you're out of the game. So we have 6 Acts of Desperation cards laid out on the table. You have Kitty Corner with your 4 Cove cards placed out. And in the game, the youngest player is the person that gets to take the Cove cards and place them out how they see fit. Each player then takes their orphan and places it on a card that they'd like to start the game on. Each player then draws 2 cards from their options deck to make up their starting hand, and you're now ready to begin the game. Whoever liked to be the first player goes ahead and chooses if they'd like to stay on the place that they are on, or if they would like to move 1 to 2 spaces around the board. You can't move diagonally, you can only move side to side. Once that player has decided if they'd like to stay or they have decided to move, they then play cards from their hand. Let's say right now we're the green orphan, and let's say this was our hand. A good card right now would be to play the lost card because this applies to players that are in the woods or the hills, and our opponent is in the hills. So we play this lost card, which makes our opponent discard their hand. And when our opponent discards their hand, they discard the cards face down. The other card we have in our hand is not helpful right now, so we're gonna go ahead and move into the next phase. So the next phase is the draw phase. And when you enter in the draw phase, you draw 2 cards either into your hand from your options deck, or you can draw them from the Cove and add them into the field. If you go to draw them from the options deck, and your hand has more than 2 cards in it, you're gonna have to play at least to get down to 2 cards because there is a hand limit of 4 at the end of your turn. If you go to draw from the options deck and you can't draw up to having 4 cards into your hand, you're out of the game. So in order to save our options, we're gonna go ahead and draw from the Cove deck. We draw the beach and we place it here so it's only touching one other card. And we draw the open field. We'll place it right here. We now pass turn to our opponent. They choose to stay where they are, and because they had to discard their whole hand, they don't have anything to play during the play phase. So they draw 2 cards also from the Cove deck to save their options. They draw the town and place it here, and they draw the highway and place it here. They now pass turn. Play goes back and forth like this until eventually someone has to commit an act of desperation. A player sitting on the Kitty Corner at the beginning of their turn goes ahead and picks one of the Acts of Desperation cards and flips it. If it's the boogeyman, they're out of the game. But if it's not the boogeyman, they go ahead and do whatever the card says, they leave the card face up, and they continue on with their turn. The game plays back and forth like this until eventually one orphan gets taken by the boogeyman. Whoever is left standing is the winning orphan. And that's Endangered Orphans of Condyle Cove. So that was Endangered Orphans of Condyle Cove. The game is really dark, but I actually had a lot of fun playing it. I only wish that it played for more than 3 players, but it's on Kickstarter, and one of the Kickstarter stretch goals is to get the 4th player, but that would have made it, I think, a lot more fun, but it also would have made the game last a lot longer. For me, the game plays up to about 30 to 40 minutes, but for some players, it might end really quickly. So that's one thing, is if you go to take one of those acts of desperation cards and you don't know how Kitty Corner works, you can be out of the game pretty much like right away. So that's the only thing I thought might be a little more difficult with the game. But other than that, I thought the game was a lot of fun. The box that I got is a review prototype box, but the game that is going to be published on Kickstarter is going to have a different box than this one. If you like the game and you want to see more information about it, feel free to check out those links down below. And if you like this video, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and you can also see me on the IndieGameReport.com. Thanks for watching. That's Cassie Elle signing out with Endangered Orphans of Condyle Cove.